r/ProRevenge stepdaughter mocked my dead military mom, so I destroyed her life. The photo was face down in the hallway trash can, the glass cracked right through my mother's face. I stood there staring at it, my hands shaking as I pulled the 8x10 frame from under crumpled tissues and energy drink cans. Mom's army dress uniform was still visible through the spider web of broken glass, her smile now split into jagged pieces. Someone had drawn a mustache on her face in black Sharpie, and scrawled, "Loser," across her Purple Heart citation that was matted below the photo. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't some careless bump into the hallway table where I'd carefully placed it that morning, the 5-year anniversary of her death in Afghanistan. Oh shit. I turned to see my 17-year-old stepsister Brianna frozen in her bedroom doorway, her face cycling through surprise, guilt, and then settling on defiance. She'd been living in our house for 2 years since Dad married her mother, and we'd never been close, but this was something else entirely. "Did you do this?" My voice came out deadly quiet. She straightened up, tossing her blonde hair. "It was an accident. I was rushing to get ready for school and..." "The marker, Brianna. Explain the fucking marker." Her mask slipped for just a second. "Look, I'm sorry about your mom, okay? But you don't have to, like, shove it in everyone's faces all the time with your little shrine thing. It's depressing." The hallway seemed to tilt. "Shrine thing? Come on, Jake. It's been 5 years. Maybe it's time to move on. My mom's trying to make this feel like our home too, and having dead people pictures everywhere is just..." She shrugged. "Weird." I looked down at the photo again. My mother, Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, who'd enlisted at 19 to pay for college. Who'd sent me care packages filled with terrible jokes written on napkins. Who'd video called me every week from her base until an IED took out her convoy 3 months before she was supposed to come home. "Where's Dad?" I managed. "Work trip. Phoenix. Back Thursday." Brianna was already retreating into her room. "Look, I'll pay for a new frame or whatever. Just, maybe keep it in your room from now on." She closed her door, and I heard her music turn up immediately. Some pop song about being young and wild and free. I walked to my room in a daze, still clutching the broken frame. My hands were cut in small places from the glass, tiny drops of blood mixing with the dust on the picture. I set it carefully on my desk and really looked at the damage. The Sharpie had soaked deep into the photo paper. Even if I got the glass replaced, cleaned off what I could, Mom's face would never look the same. 5 years. 5 years of Dad barely mentioning her name around his new wife. 5 years of feeling like a ghost in my own house, like my grief was somehow inappropriate now that we'd all moved on. 5 years of biting my tongue when Brianna complained about military families getting discounts she didn't qualify for, or rolled her eyes when the national anthem played before movies. But this was different. This was desecration. I pulled out my phone and took pictures of the damage from every angle. Then I sat back in my desk chair and really thought about my stepsister for the first time. Really thought about who she was when she thought no one was paying attention. Brianna had made a mistake. A big one. She just declared war on the wrong person's memory. I spent the rest of that day researching my enemy. It sounds dramatic, but that's exactly what Brianna had become the moment she put a Sharpie to my mother's face. I skipped my afternoon classes and dove deep into her social media, her friend groups, her routines. 2 years of living in the same house and I'd never bothered to really know her beyond surface-level politeness and the occasional argument over bathroom time. What I found was illuminating. Brianna Martinez was popular at Roosevelt High, but it was the kind of popularity built on careful image management. Her Instagram was a perfectly curated collection of volunteer work, study groups, and wholesome family photos. Honor Society. Key Club Treasurer. 3 different charity drives organized. Her college application essays, which she'd left open on the family computer last month, painted her as a devoted daughter who'd overcome adversity and wanted to dedicate her life to helping veterans. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. But Instagram tells only part of the story. Her TikTok account, which she clearly thought was more private, showed a different Brianna entirely. The Brianna who made jokes about military brats and their trauma dumping. The Brianna who'd posted a video last Veterans Day with the caption, "When someone thanks you for your service but you're just trying to get your Starbucks discount," followed by a dozen laughing emojis. The video had been filmed in our kitchen. I could see the corner of Mom's memorial photo in the background. My jaw clenched as I kept scrolling. There were more. Comments on her friends' posts about how exhausting it was living with someone who made everything about dead people. A video from 3 months ago where she and her friend Chloe were doing some stupid dance trend, but the caption read, "POV, you have to tiptoe around your stepbrother's grief complex." Each post felt like another crack in my chest, but I screenshotted every single one. Then I found the group chat. Brianna had been careless with the family iPad, still logged into her messages. The group chat was called Roosevelt Royalty and included her closest friends, the ones who appeared in all those wholesome Instagram posts. The ones whose parents would be writing recommendation letters for her college applications. I scrolled back to the anniversary of Mom's death, today's date from previous years. My stomach dropped as I read. Brianna, ugh, Jake's doing his dead mom thing again. Asterisk Chloe, still. Didn't she die like forever ago? Asterisk. Asterisk Brianna, 5 years but who's counting lol. He literally made us all be quiet this morning for his moment of remembrance. So cringe. Asterisk. Madison, that's actually really sad though. Asterisk Brianna, is it? Like I get being sad but he acts like she was some kind of war hero. She literally just drove trucks and got blown up because she wasn't paying attention. Asterisk. My vision went red. I had to set the iPad down and walk away before I put my fist through the screen. Mom hadn't driven trucks. She'd been a communications specialist, and she died because her convoy stopped to help Afghan civilians whose car had broken down on a dangerous stretch of road. It was the kind of thing she'd always done, helping people, even when it put her at risk. The army had given her a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star for her service. But Brianna didn't know that, because she'd never bothered to ask. She just made assumptions and turned my mother's sacrifice into joke material for her group chat. I picked up the iPad again and kept reading. There was more. So much more. And slowly, a plan began to form. The group chat messages got worse the further back I scrolled. Asterisk Brianna, Jake literally keeps a candle burning 24/7 for his dead mom. Fire hazard much? Asterisk. Chloe, my therapist says some people use grief as an attention thing. Asterisk Brianna, thank you. Like we get it, she's dead, move on. My mom bends over backwards trying to be sensitive about it and Jake just wallows, asterisk. Asterisk Madison, maybe he just misses her. Asterisk. Asterisk Brianna, he was like 14 when she died. How much could he really remember? I think he just likes the sympathy, asterisk. I had to stop reading. My hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from shock, it was from pure rage. How much could I really remember? I remembered everything. Mom teaching me to change a tire in our driveway. Mom staying up until 2 a.m. helping me with my history project on World War II, telling me stories her grandfather had shared about Guadalcanal. Mom calling me from Afghanistan on my 15th birthday, the connection cutting in and out, but she stayed on the line for an hour anyway. But there was something else in these messages. Something that made me pause. Brianna, at least when I'm at state next year I won't have to deal with the daily grief parade anymore. Asterisk Chloe, still can't believe you got early admission. Your essay about working with veterans was so good, asterisk. Asterisk Brianna, I mean I basically wrote what they wanted to hear. Inspired by my stepfamily's military sacrifice, blah blah blah. Easy acceptance letter, asterisk. Asterisk Madison, wait you've never actually volunteered at the VA center. Asterisk. Asterisk Brianna, lol no have you been there? It smells like sadness and old people, asterisk. Chloe, but your application said you had like 200 volunteer hours there. Asterisk Brianna, they don't actually check that stuff. Besides, I live with military family trauma every day, that's basically the same thing right? Asterisk. Now this was interesting. Very interesting. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up Arizona State's admission requirements. Academic fraud was taken seriously at all universities, but ASU had specifically implemented stricter verification processes after a scandal 2 years ago. They'd started randomly auditing applications, especially for competitive programs. Brianna was planning to major in psychology with a pre-med track. Extremely competitive. The kind of program where they absolutely would verify volunteer hours if someone reported discrepancies. I kept digging through her digital life. Her Snapchat stories revealed more than she probably intended. Photos from parties when she told her mom she was studying. Screenshots of text conversations with boys, multiple boys. Including her serious boyfriend Marcus, who was currently deployed with the Marines. That relationship had been the one thing I'd actually respected about Brianna. Marcus seemed like a good guy from the few times I'd met him. He'd even talked to me about mom once, sharing his own fears about deployment. Brianna had played the devoted military girlfriend perfectly, posting photos with care packages she'd supposedly sent, wearing his dog tags, talking about how hard it was to have a boyfriend overseas. But her private messages told a different story. The ones with someone named Tyler were explicit. Recent. From last week, in fact. While she'd been posting Instagram stories about missing Marcus and counting down days until his return. Then there were the messages with her friend Derek. And someone called Soccer Boy in her contacts. A lot of messages. A lot of plans to meet up while Marcus is deployed and what he doesn't know won't hurt him. I sat back in my chair, processing everything I discovered. Academic fraud. Cheating on her deployed boyfriend. Years of mocking my dead mother. Lying to her friends, her family, her college. Brianna had built her entire life on carefully constructed lies, and she'd made the mistake of attacking the one person I'd never let anyone disrespect. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad, asterisk, how was the anniversary, son? I know today's hard. I'll call tonight. Asterisk. Too little, too late. He was in Phoenix closing some business deal while his stepdaughter was desecrating his dead wife's memory at home. I looked at the broken photo on my desk, then at the screens full of evidence in front of me. Time to show Brianna what real consequences looked like. I started with the college application fraud, it felt like the cleanest opening move. Arizona State's anonymous tip line was surprisingly easy to find on their website. I spent an hour crafting the perfect message, making sure to sound like a concerned citizen rather than a vengeful stepbrother. I included specific details from Brianna's group chat about fabricating her volunteer hours, mentioned the competitive nature of her pre-med track, and suggested they verify her claims about working with veterans. I believe this applicant may have misrepresented her community service hours on her application, I typed. She has claimed extensive volunteer work with military veterans that does not appear to have actually occurred. Given the sensitive nature of working with this vulnerable population, I felt it was important to bring this to your attention. Professional. Concerned. Completely devastating. I hit send and felt the first surge of satisfaction I'd experienced since finding Mom's photo in the trash. But I was just getting started. Next, I created a fake Instagram account. Nothing traceable, I used a VPN, a throwaway email, and picked a generic name with stock photos of some random college kid I found online. It took me 3 hours to make it look authentic, following ASU students and Phoenix locals, posting a few generic college life stories. Then I followed Marcus. His Instagram was exactly what you'd expect from a deployed Marine, photos from his base, sunset shots from wherever he was stationed, the occasional gym selfie. But more importantly, it was full of photos of Brianna. Screenshots of their FaceTime calls. Pictures of the care packages she'd allegedly sent him. Long captions about how much he missed his beautiful girlfriend back home and how her support was getting him through his deployment. The guy was clearly crazy about her. I felt a brief stab of guilt as I started crafting the direct message that would destroy his relationship. Marcus seemed decent, he'd always been respectful during the few times he'd visited our house, and he'd actually listened when I told him about Mom's service record. But Brianna had made her choice when she decided to cheat on him while he was risking his life overseas. Hey man, I don't know you personally but I go to ASU and I've seen your girlfriend around. I really debated sending this but if it were me, I'd want to know. I've seen her with other guys multiple times over the past few months. I'm really sorry to be the bearer of bad news. I attached screenshots of Brianna's conversations with Tyler, the most damning ones where she explicitly talked about hooking up with him while Marcus is deployed. I'd been careful to crop out any identifying information that could lead back to me, making it look like someone had simply witnessed her cheating rather than hacked her messages. My finger hovered over the send button. Once I pressed it, there was no going back. Marcus would be devastated, and their 2-year relationship would be over. I thought about Mom's photo with that mustache drawn across her face. I pressed send. The response came faster than I expected. Within an hour, Marcus had replied, "Are you sure this is her? This doesn't seem like Brianna at all." I sent more screenshots. The conversations with Derek. The ones with Soccer Boy. Her messages to Chloe about how easy it was to maintain her faithful girlfriend image while having fun behind Marcus's back. This time, Marcus didn't respond. But 20 minutes later, I heard Brianna's phone start ringing downstairs. Then ringing again. Then buzzing with what sounded like dozens of text messages in rapid succession. What the hell? I heard her voice carry up from the living room. Then, "Marcus, calm down, what are you talking about? Who told you what?" Her voice got higher, more panicked. "That's not, I would never, someone's lying to you." I crept to the top of the stairs, listening as her conversation became increasingly desperate. "Marcus, please, you have to believe me. I love you. I've been faithful this whole time, I swear on my mother's life." The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd swear on her living mother's life while desecrating my dead mother's memory. The call ended with what sounded like Brianna sobbing. One down. Several more moves to go. The fallout from Marcus discovering Brianna's cheating was immediate and brutal. Within hours, her phone was buzzing constantly with notifications. I watched from my bedroom window as she paced around the backyard, desperately trying to call him back. Each attempt went straight to voicemail. When she finally came inside, her eyes were red and swollen, her carefully applied makeup streaked down her cheeks. "Jake." Her voice was small when she knocked on my door that evening. Can I talk to you?" I almost laughed. Now she wanted to talk. "What's up?" I kept my voice neutral, not looking up from my laptop where I was researching my next move. Did anyone ask you about me today? Like, about my relationship with Marcus?" "No. Why would they?" I finally met her eyes. "Is everything okay?" She studied my face for a long moment, and I could see her trying to figure out if I was involved somehow. But there was no way she could trace the anonymous Instagram account back to me, and she had bigger problems to worry about. Someone sent him lies about me. Fake screenshots and stuff. He won't even listen to my side of the story. Fresh tears started streaming down her face. We've been together for 2 years, and he just believed some random stranger over me. "That's awful," I said, turning back to my computer. "Maybe try giving him some space to cool down." "But what if he doesn't cool down? What if this ruins everything?" Her voice cracked. "I love him, Jake. I really do." The audacity was staggering. She'd been cheating on him for months, bragging about it to her friends, and now she was playing the victim because she got caught. "I'm sure it'll work out if it's meant to," I said dismissively. People don't usually throw away real relationships over rumors. She lingered in my doorway for another moment before trudging back to her room. I heard her on the phone with Chloe later, spinning an elaborate story about jealous classmates trying to sabotage her relationship. The delusion was almost impressive. But Brianna's romantic drama was just the opening act. 2 days later, while she was still desperately trying to reach Marcus, my real masterpiece began to unfold. "Brianna." Her mother Elena called up the stairs. "There's someone from Arizona State on the phone for you." I was in the kitchen grabbing a snack when Brianna came downstairs, looking confused but not particularly worried. She still thought her college acceptance was secure, built on the foundation of lies she'd carefully constructed. "Hello, this is Brianna Martinezjan," she said, putting the call on speaker while she grabbed a water bottle from the fridge. "Ms. Martinezjan, this is David Rodriguez from ASU Admissions. We need to schedule a time for you to come in and discuss some discrepancies we found in your application materials." The water bottle slipped from her hand, hitting the tile floor with a sharp crack. "Discrepancies?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Specifically regarding your claimed volunteer work with veterans organizations. We'll need you to provide documentation of your service hours, as well as contact information for your supervisors at these facilities." I watched the color drain from her face as the full implications hit her. She'd built her entire college application around fake volunteer work, and now they were asking for proof she couldn't provide. When do you need this documentation?" she managed. "We'll need to meet within the next week. If we can't verify these claims, we'll have to reconsider your admission status." After she hung up, Brianna just stood there staring at the phone in her hand like it had personally betrayed her. I continued making my sandwich, acting like I hadn't heard anything unusual. "Everything okay?" I asked casually. "They want to verify my volunteer hours," she said, more to herself than to me. "They never check volunteer hours. Maybe they're just being thorough." I suggested. "I'm sure you kept records, right? Contact info for your supervisors and stuff." The look she gave me was pure panic. Over the next few days, I watched Brianna spiral as her carefully constructed world began to crumble. She'd locked herself in her room for hours, frantically calling every veterans organization within 50 miles of Phoenix, trying to convince anyone, to backdate confirm volunteer hours she'd never actually completed. I could hear her through the thin walls, her voice getting more desperate with each rejection. "Please, I just need someone to say I was there," she begged during one particularly pathetic call. "I can donate money to your organization. I can volunteer for real starting next week." The conversations never lasted long. But while Brianna was busy trying to save her college admission, I was already 3 steps ahead, preparing the next phase of my revenge. I'd spent the weekend diving deeper into her digital footprint, and I'd found something even more damaging than academic fraud or cheating on her boyfriend. Brianna had been stealing from her own mother. The evidence was buried in her Venmo transactions, which she'd carelessly left public. Small amounts at first, $40 here, $60 there, always with innocent descriptions like gas money or lunch with friends. But the amounts had gotten bigger over the past 6 months. $200 for textbooks, $350 for emergency car repair, $500 for college application fees. What made it theft wasn't the money itself, it was how she was getting it. I'd overheard enough conversations to know that Elena kept her tip money from her weekend catering job in an old jewelry box in her bedroom dresser. Cash tips that she was saving for Brianna's college expenses, money she'd carefully set aside from every wedding and corporate event she worked. Money that had been mysteriously disappearing, causing Elena to question her own memory and worry about her financial planning. I could have sworn I had more saved, I'd heard Elena tell my father during one of their late-night conversations. Maybe I'm not keeping track as well as I thought. But Brianna was keeping track perfectly. Her Venmo history showed deposits of cash that coincided exactly with her mother's concerned comments about missing tip money. She'd been gaslighting her own mother while stealing the money Elena was saving for her future. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. I screenshotted every transaction, noting the dates and amounts. Then I did something that would have made Mom proud. I started building a proper case file. Organized, methodical, thorough. Evidence that could stand up to scrutiny. Wednesday afternoon, while Brianna was at school desperately trying to convince her guidance counselor to help her fake volunteer documentation, I heard Elena come home from her day's shift at the restaurant. She went straight upstairs, probably to add her tips to the dwindling collection in her jewelry box. The cry of anguish that came from her bedroom 5 minutes later told me everything I needed to know. No, 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 Elena's voice carried down the hallway. It was here this morning. I know it was here. I found her sitting on her bedroom floor, the wooden jewelry box open in her lap, frantically searching through the compartments as if the missing money might magically reappear. Elena? What's wrong? I kept my voice gentle, concerned. The money for Brianna's dorm deposits, she said, tears starting to stream down her face. I had $800 saved up. I counted it this morning before work, and now. She held up a thin stack of 20s. There's barely 200 left. Maybe you miscounted. I suggested, sitting down beside her. Stress can make us forget things. No, Jake. I've been so careful, keeping track of every dollar. Someone took it. Her voice broke. But who would? We're the only ones with access to the house. I let the silence stretch between us, watching as the horrible realization began to dawn in her eyes. There were only 4 people who lived here, and she knew it wasn't me or my father. Elena, I said softly, has anything like this happened before? She nodded slowly. I thought I was going crazy. Money disappearing, but never enough to be sure. Always small amounts, always when I was stressed about other things. She looked up at me with devastated eyes. You don't think Brianna would? I don't know, I lied. But maybe we should find out for sure before Dad gets back from his trip. The conversation with Elena changed everything. Watching her blame herself for the missing money her own daughter had been systematically stealing, ignited something dark and final in my chest. This wasn't just about Mom's desecrated photo anymore. This was about Brianna being a fundamentally cruel person who hurt everyone around her. I helped Elena search her room, pretending to look for the missing cash while she spiraled into self-doubt. Maybe I did miscount, she kept saying. Maybe I'm losing my mind. You're not losing your mind, I told her firmly. If money is disappearing, there's a reason. That evening, I made my decision. I waited until Brianna came home from school, her face still puffy from crying over Marcus and the college situation. She barely acknowledged Elena or me, just grabbed a bag of chips and headed for the stairs. Brianna, Elena called out, her voice shaky. Can we talk for a minute? I'm really not in the mood, Mom. I've had the worst day of my life. Elena's face crumpled slightly. Even now, she was trying to protect her daughter. It's just, some money has gone missing from my room, and I wanted to ask if you'd seen anyone around the house, or... Are you seriously asking me if I stole from you right now? Brianna's voice pitched higher, instantly defensive. When my entire life is falling apart. Thanks for the support, Mom. That's not what I'm saying. I just thought maybe you'd noticed. I can't deal with this. Brianna stormed upstairs, her door slamming hard enough to shake the house. Elena stood there in the kitchen, looking like she'd been slapped. I handled that wrong, she whispered. No, you didn't, I said. You asked a reasonable question. But watching Elena doubt herself while Brianna played the victim was the final straw. I'd been methodical up until now, strategic. This felt different. More personal. That night, I logged into Brianna's Instagram account. I'd figured out her password weeks ago. It was Marcus's deployment date, which would have been sweet if she weren't cheating on him. Now I scrolled through her carefully curated feed, looking at all those photos of volunteer work she'd never done, family moments she'd been faking, the perfect daughter image she'd built. Her story from today showed her crying in her car with the caption, "When your whole world falls apart in 1 week, broken heart, #blessed, #stay strong." The comments were full of support from friends and family. Stay strong, Queen. You've got this. Everything happens for a reason. I started typing a response from her account. Thanks everyone. I need to be honest about some things. The volunteer work I've been posting about. I made most of it up for college applications. And Marcus. I cheated on him. Multiple times. I know I've been posting about being the perfect military girlfriend, but I've been lying to everyone, including myself. My finger hovered over the share button. This would destroy her social media presence, her carefully maintained reputation, her relationships with friends who thought they knew her. But before I could post it, my phone buzzed with a text from Dad, coming home early. Flight lands at 11 p.m. We need to talk about some things. My stomach dropped. Coming home early. We needed to talk. 20 minutes later, Brianna's phone started ringing. She answered on the first ring. Dad? Why are you calling so late? Her voice carried through the thin walls. I pressed my ear against the door, listening. What do you mean someone contacted you? Brianna's voice was getting higher. What kind of allegations? A long pause. No, Dad, that's not. I can explain everything. Another pause, longer this time. Please don't tell Mom yet. Just let me talk to you first when you get home. After she hung up, I heard her pacing frantically in her room, making phone call after phone call. By the sound of it, my anonymous tips were bearing fruit in ways I hadn't even anticipated. I deleted the Instagram post I'd written without sending it. I wouldn't need to destroy Brianna's reputation myself. She'd done such a thorough job building her life on lies that all I needed to do was start pulling threads. Now everything was unraveling on its own, and Dad was coming home to deal with the mess. But as I lay in bed that night, listening to Brianna crying through the walls, I realized something that should have worried me more than it did. I felt absolutely no guilt about any of it. Dad's flight was delayed until 2 a.m., which gave me 3 extra hours to watch Brianna's world continue its spectacular collapse in real time. She'd been on the phone non-stop since his call, and from what I could overhear through our shared wall, the news kept getting worse. Arizona State wasn't just questioning her volunteer hours anymore, they'd launched a full audit of her entire application. Apparently, when universities start digging, they dig deep. Chloe, I need you to tell them we volunteered together, Brianna whispered frantically into her phone around midnight. Just say we were at the VA center last summer. Please. The conversation didn't last long. Even her closest friends were starting to distance themselves as word spread about her fabricated volunteer work. Nothing killed high school social status faster than getting caught in a lie that affected college admissions. It made everyone paranoid about their own applications being scrutinized. Around 1 a.m., her phone rang again. This time I heard a male voice through the speaker, angry and hurt. Marcus? Brianna's voice cracked with hope. Don't. His voice was cold in a way I'd never heard from him before. I'm only calling to tell you I mailed your stuff back. Don't contact me again. Please, just let me explain. Explain what? How you've been hooking up with half of Phoenix while I'm deployed. How you've been posting about missing me while texting other guys that you're single. It wasn't like that. I saw the screenshots, Brianna. Your own words. Marcus is deployed and what he doesn't know won't hurt him. His voice broke slightly. 2 years. I thought you were going to be my wife someday. The line went dead, and Brianna's sobs echoed through the house. I should have felt satisfied. This was exactly what I'd wanted, consequences for her cruelty, her lies, her complete disrespect for everyone who'd ever trusted her. But lying there in the dark, listening to her cry, I felt something more complex than satisfaction. I felt powerful. For 2 years, I'd been the outsider in this house. The grieving stepson whose trauma made everyone uncomfortable. The reminder of Dad's previous life that didn't quite fit into the new family dynamic. Brianna had been the golden child, popular, successful, heading to college with a bright future. Now I was the one holding all the cards. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Is this Jake Santos? This is Derek Chin, Brianna's friend. She said someone might be spreading lies about her online. Do you know anything about that? Interesting. Brianna was getting desperate enough to involve mutual acquaintances in her damage control efforts. Derek was a senior at her school, probably one of the guys she'd been texting while Marcus was deployed. I typed back, I don't know anything about that. Why would someone spread lies about Brianna? She thinks maybe someone hacked her accounts or something. Made fake screenshots. She's pretty messed up about it. That's terrible. Have you suggested she contact the police if someone's hacking her? The typing indicator appeared and disappeared several times before Derek responded, yeah, maybe. It's just weird timing with all the college stuff happening too. I set my phone aside, smiling in the darkness. Let Brianna try to explain to police how someone had faked screenshots that perfectly matched her writing style, her friend groups, and her private information. Let her try to prove that her own Venmo transactions were fabricated, or that someone had impersonated her in messages to boys she'd never admit to knowing. The beautiful thing about my revenge was that it was built entirely on truth. I hadn't fabricated anything, hadn't planted false evidence, hadn't created fake scenarios. I'd simply collected Brianna's own words and actions and made sure the right people saw them. At 2:30 a.m., I heard Dad's car pull into the driveway. Within minutes, Elena was awake and downstairs, her voice a mixture of relief and anxiety as she filled him in on everything that had happened. The missing money. The college calling about Brianna's application. Marcus breaking up with her. The rumors spreading at school. Slow down, Dad's tired voice carried up the stairs. Start from the beginning. I crept to my bedroom door and opened it a crack, listening as Elena recounted the past few days in halting, worried sentences. She was still trying to protect Brianna even as she described the mounting evidence of her daughter's lies and theft. Jim, what did they tell you on the phone earlier? Elena finally asked. Dad sighed heavily. Someone contacted my office. Anonymous tip claiming Brianna had been posting inappropriate content about military families online. They sent screenshots of social media posts mocking Jake's mother. My blood froze. I hadn't sent anything to Dad's office. My manager thought I should know since it could reflect on the company if it got out that my stepdaughter was making jokes about fallen soldiers. Elena's gasp was audible from upstairs. She wouldn't. Brianna wouldn't do that. I've seen the screenshots, Elena. They're definitely her accounts. Someone else had discovered Brianna's TikTok posts. Someone else had connected her to our family and decided to cause problems. My careful, anonymous revenge was about to become a whole lot more complicated. I sat frozen in my doorway as Dad's words sank in. Someone else had found Brianna's posts about Mom and reported them to his workplace. This wasn't part of my plan. Show me, Elena whispered downstairs. I heard Dad's phone unlock, then a long, terrible silence. Oh my God. Elena's voice was barely audible. She called Maria a truck driver who wasn't paying attention. Jim, that's not who raised Brianna to be. There's more, Dad said grimly. Screenshots of group chat messages. Years of this stuff, Elena. Years of her mocking Jake's grief, making fun of military families, calling his memorial photos a shrine thing. The sound that came from Elena wasn't quite a sob, wasn't quite a gasp. It was the sound of a mother's heart breaking in real time. I need to wake her up, Elena said suddenly. I need to hear her side of this. Elena, wait. But I could already hear her footsteps on the stairs. She knocked softly on Brianna's door, then opened it without waiting for a response. Brianna, honey, we need to talk. Your father's home. Mom. Brianna's voice was thick with sleep and tears. What time is it? Get dressed and come downstairs. Now. The authority in Elena's voice was something I'd never heard before. She'd always been the gentle parent, the mediator, the one who smoothed over conflicts. But something fundamental had shifted tonight. 10 minutes later, Brianna shuffled downstairs in her pajamas and a hoodie, her hair messy and her eyes swollen from crying. She looked younger than 17, vulnerable in a way that might have made me feel sorry for her if I hadn't seen the cruel person hiding beneath the surface. Dad? She tried for a smile. You're home early. Dad held up his phone without preamble. Explain this. I crept to the top of the stairs where I could see into the living room. Brianna took the phone, and I watched her face cycle through confusion, recognition, and then pure panic as she scrolled through the screenshots. Where did you get these? Someone sent them to my boss, Brianna. My boss. Do you understand what that means? These posts are connected to our family, our address, our name. And you're making jokes about Jake's mother being killed in action. It wasn't supposed to be public, Brianna said weakly. Those were private messages with my friends. Someone must have. Must have what? Elena's voice cut through the room like a blade. Must have forced you to type those words. Must have made you call a decorated soldier who died serving her country inattentive. I'd never seen Elena angry before. She was trembling with it now, her whole body rigid with a fury I didn't know she possessed. Mom, you don't understand. Living here is hard sometimes. Jake gets so much attention for his grief, and I just needed to vent to my friends. Attention? Dad's voice was dangerously quiet. You think Jake gets attention for missing his dead mother? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean when you told your friends he was using grief as an attention thing? What did you mean when you said he acts like she was some kind of war hero? Brianna looked between her parents, clearly realizing that her usual manipulation tactics weren't going to work. The tears started flowing again, but this time they seemed calculated rather than genuine. I made mistakes, okay? I was angry and stupid, and I said things I didn't mean. But someone invaded my privacy and now my whole life is ruined because of it. Even now, she was playing the victim. Even faced with the evidence of her own cruelty, she couldn't take responsibility without making herself the wronged party. And as I watched my father's face harden with each excuse she made, I realized something important. I might not need to destroy Brianna after all. She was doing it perfectly well herself. The confrontation downstairs stretched into the early morning hours, and I found myself glued to my position at the top of the stairs, watching Brianna's lies unravel in real time. We need to talk about the money too, Elena said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. $800 missing from my jewelry box. Money I've been saving for your college expenses. Brianna's face went white. You think I stole from you? I think a lot of things I never thought I'd have to think about my own daughter, Elena replied. But the evidence keeps piling up, doesn't it? Dad looked confused. What money? As Elena explained about the missing cash, the mysterious disappearances over months, I watched Brianna's expression carefully. She was calculating, trying to figure out how much they knew versus how much she could still deny. It was fascinating to see someone's moral compass completely broken in real time. I borrowed some, Brianna finally admitted. But I was going to pay it back. I had expenses for school stuff, and I didn't want to bother you guys. Borrowed? Dad's voice rose. You took $800 without asking and called it borrowing. It was for college application fees. For our family's benefit. Stop lying, Elena said quietly. Just for once, stop lying to us. That's when Brianna made her fatal mistake. Instead of coming clean, instead of apologizing and trying to rebuild trust, she went nuclear. Fine. You want the truth. Living in this house is like living in a mausoleum. Everything revolves around Jake's dead mom. We have to tiptoe around his feelings constantly. God forbid we move forward as a family because Jake might get triggered by happiness. The silence that followed was deafening. Maria was my wife, Dad said slowly. She was Jake's mother. She died serving our country. And you think respecting her memory is a problem? I think making a shrine to dead people and forcing everyone to participate in your grief ritual is weird, yes. Brianna was spiraling now, saying things she couldn't take back. Normal families move on. Normal families don't make their living space into a memorial. Elena stood up abruptly. Go to your room. Mom. Go to your room before I say something I'll regret. After Brianna stomped upstairs, her door slamming behind her, my father and stepmother sat in silence for a long moment. When Elena finally spoke, her voice was broken. I failed her somehow. I raised someone who could mock a dead soldier, who could steal from her own family, who could lie about everything for years. Where did I go wrong? This isn't your fault, Dad said softly. Isn't it? She's been living under the same roof as Jake, seeing his pain every day, and instead of developing compassion, she turned cruel. I heard Dad move across the room, probably to comfort Elena, but her next words stopped me cold. Jim, I think we need to consider that Brianna might not be able to live here anymore. My heart rate spiked. I hadn't expected this escalation. I'd wanted consequences for Brianna, but Elena talking about kicking her out. That felt bigger than I'd intended. Elena, she's your daughter. And she's 17. She's almost 18. And she's been systematically destroying this family while pretending to be part of it. Elena's voice strengthened with resolve. Jake lost his mother. He deserves to feel safe in his own home, not constantly attacked and undermined by someone who's supposed to be his family. Through my cracked bedroom door, I could see Brianna pressed against her own door, clearly listening to every word. For the first time since this whole thing started, she looked genuinely terrified rather than just angry. The plan I'd set in motion was working better than I'd ever imagined. Maybe too well. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of hushed but heated voices downstairs. Dad had clearly stayed up most of the night talking with Elena, and now they were in crisis management mode. We can't just kick her out, Elena. She's still a minor, and legally. Then what do you suggest? Let her keep tormenting Jake. Keep stealing from us. Keep lying about everything. I crept downstairs to grab some coffee and found them sitting at the kitchen table surrounded by papers, bank statements, Brianna's college correspondence, printed screenshots of her social media posts. They looked exhausted and defeated. Morning, I said quietly, trying to gauge the temperature of the room. Dad looked up with hollow eyes. Jake, I owe you an apology. A massive one. I should have protected your mother's memory better. I should have paid attention to what was happening in my own house. The guilt in his voice was so thick I almost felt bad about my orchestrated revenge. Almost. It's not your fault, Dad. It is, though. I was so focused on blending our families that I ignored the signs. Elena's been telling me about money going missing for months, and I dismissed it. I wanted everything to work so badly that I made excuses for behavior that was inexcusable. Elena reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Jake, I'm so sorry about what Brianna said about your mother. About all of it. If I'd known she was capable of that kind of cruelty. What are you going to do? I asked, settling into a chair with my coffee. They exchanged a look that told me they'd been debating this exact question for hours. We're not sure yet, Dad admitted. Her college admission is probably gone. Arizona State called Elena an hour ago. They're officially rescinding her acceptance pending a full investigation into academic fraud. I tried to look appropriately shocked rather than satisfied. Seriously? They don't mess around with falsified volunteer work, especially when it involves veterans organizations, Elena said, her voice flat. Apparently, someone also reported her social media posts to the university. They're considering it a pattern of behavior that doesn't align with their values. My stomach dropped. The anonymous tip to Dad's work, the university report, there was definitely someone else involved in this now. Someone who discovered Brianna's posts independently and was running their own campaign against her. Do they know who reported it? I asked carefully. Could be anyone, Dad said. Her posts weren't exactly private. Once people started looking. He shrugged helplessly. Before anyone could say more, Brianna appeared in the kitchen doorway. She looked terrible, her hair unwashed, dark circles under her eyes, her usual confident demeanor completely shattered. I heard you guys talking, she said quietly. About kicking me out. Elena's expression hardened. Sit down, Brianna. Mom, please. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. I can fix this. How? Dad leaned back in his chair, studying her. How do you fix years of lying? How do you fix mocking a dead soldier? How do you fix stealing from your own mother? I'll get a job. I'll pay back every penny. I'll apologize to Jake, I'll delete all my social media, You'll what? Elena interrupted. You'll pretend to be a different person until we trust you again. Then go right back to who you really are. Brianna's face crumpled. That's not who I really am. I was just angry and stupid, Anne. You were cruel, Dad said bluntly. For years. Systematically, deliberately cruel to someone who's been through enough pain for a lifetime. I watched this conversation unfold with a mixture of fascination and growing unease. My revenge had worked perfectly, too perfectly. The family was imploding, and while Brianna deserved consequences, seeing Elena's devastation made me realize I'd hurt more than just my target. What if? Brianna's voice was desperate now. What if I went to stay with Aunt Carmen for a while? Just until I figure things out. I won't be 18 for 3 months, so you wouldn't be abandoning me. Elena and Dad exchanged another loaded look. Carmen was Elena's sister in California, far enough away to give everyone space, but not technically throwing Brianna out on the street. I think that might be best, Elena said slowly. For everyone. Brianna nodded frantically, clearly relieved that exile was better than homelessness. I can leave today. I'll call Aunt Carmen right now. As she rushed upstairs to make the call, I realized that my systematic destruction of her life was about to remove her from my daily existence entirely. I'd won more completely than I'd ever imagined. So why did I suddenly feel like something was spiraling beyond my control? The feeling that something was spiraling hit me full force when my phone buzzed with a notification that made my blood run cold. Marcus had tagged me in an Instagram story. I opened it with shaking hands to find a screenshot of our house's address with the caption, "Anyone near Phoenix want to pay Jake Santos' stepsister a visit? She destroyed my life while I'm deployed. Fair's fair." Below it were crying laughing emojis and the addresses of Brianna's school, Elena's restaurant, and somehow even Dad's office. Marcus had posted this to his 3,000 plus military followers, complete with photos of Brianna and detailed descriptions of everything she'd done. Holy shit, I breathed, screenshotting everything before it could disappear. The comments were already pouring in. Angry Marines, Army buddies, military wives who'd been faithful through multiple deployments. The rage was palpable, and it was all directed at my address. This wasn't what I'd wanted. I'd sent Marcus those screenshots to hurt Brianna's relationship, not to turn her into a target for thousands of furious service members and their families. I was still staring at my phone when Elena's scream from downstairs made me bolt for the door. Jim, come look at this. I found them huddled around Elena's laptop, her face white with terror. What is it? Dad demanded, running in from the garage. Someone posted our address online, Elena whispered. There are hundreds of people sharing it. They're calling Brianna a military girlfriend fraud and saying she mocked fallen soldiers. Dad leaned over her shoulder, his expression darkening as he read. Jesus Christ. How did they connect her to our address? Look at the comments, Elena said, scrolling down. They're organizing something. People are talking about driving here. I read over their shoulders, my stomach dropping with each message. Military fraud bitches deserve what's coming. Asterisk, road trip to Phoenix anyone? Asterisk. Someone should teach this family some respect. That stepdaughter needs a reality check. The posts were spreading across multiple platforms now. Facebook groups for military spouses, veteran forums, local Phoenix community pages. Someone had even created a dedicated hashtag Brianna the Betrayer. We need to call the police, Dad said, pulling out his phone. And tell them what? Elena's voice was rising toward panic. That our daughter brought this on herself by mocking dead soldiers online. That she catfished a deployed Marine. Footsteps thundered down the stairs as Brianna appeared, her face streaked with fresh tears. Mom, people are calling Aunt Carmen's house. They found her number somehow and they're saying she stopped when she saw our faces. What's wrong now? Dad turned his laptop screen toward her. This is what's wrong. Brianna went completely pale as she read Marcus's post and a comment spreading beneath it. He posted our address. He can't do that. That's illegal or something, right? You destroyed that boy's life, Elena said quietly. While he was deployed. While he was risking everything for our country. What did you think was going to happen? I didn't think it would go this far. Brianna was crying again, but this time it was pure terror instead of self-pity. I just wanted to have fun. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. A car door slammed outside, and we all froze. Dad moved to the window, peering through the blinds. There's a truck in our driveway. 2 guys getting out. My heart hammered against my ribs. I wanted to destroy Brianna's life, not put my family in actual physical danger. But my revenge had taken on a life of its own, spreading through military networks faster than I could have imagined. Everyone stay inside, Dad ordered, but his voice was shaking. Elena, call 911. Now. The doorbell rang, followed immediately by heavy pounding. We know you're in there, a man's voice shouted. Send out the military fraud. Brianna grabbed my arm, her fingernails digging into my skin. Jake, please. I'm sorry about your mom's photo. I'm sorry about everything. Please don't let them hurt me. I stared down at her terrified face, realizing that my carefully orchestrated revenge had just become something much more dangerous. And I was the only one who could stop it. The pounding on the door got louder, and I could hear more vehicles pulling into our driveway. Through the window, I saw at least 4 trucks now, with men getting out carrying signs I couldn't quite read from this angle. Jake, Brianna whispered, still gripping my arm. Please. I know I hurt you, but I don't deserve this. Dad was on the phone with 911, his voice tight with controlled panic. Yes, we have multiple individuals on our property making threats. They're here because of social media posts targeting my stepdaughter. Elena had gone completely still, the kind of stillness that comes right before a complete breakdown. This is my fault, she kept whispering. I raised her to be this person. No, I said firmly, surprised by the conviction in my own voice. This isn't your fault, Elena. More shouting from outside, military families sacrifice everything. Your daughter spits on that sacrifice. She needs to face what she's done, another voice added. I moved to the window despite Dad's protests and peered through the blinds. What I saw made my stomach drop completely. These weren't just angry young soldiers looking to blow off steam. There were older men out there, veterans with graying beards and serious faces. Women holding photos of what looked like fallen service members. Someone had brought a poster-sized printout of Mom's memorial photo, the one Brianna had defaced. This wasn't just about Brianna cheating on Marcus anymore. Somehow, this had become about my mother. They have Mom's picture, I said quietly. Dad looked through the blinds and cursed under his breath. How did they get that? My phone buzzed with a notification, and my blood turned to ice as I read it. Someone had found my own social media accounts, had seen the memorial posts I made every year on the anniversary of Mom's death. They'd connected Brianna's cruel comments to my actual mother, Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, and now they were treating this like she personally attacked a specific fallen hero instead of just making generic cruel jokes. Jake Santos, a woman's voice called from outside. We know your stepfamily disrespected your mother's memory. We're here to honor Staff Sergeant Santos. Brianna looked at me with growing horror. They think you're part of this. They think you want them here. I was already moving toward the door before I fully realized what I was doing. Jake, no. Dad grabbed my shoulder. Don't go out there. They're here because of Mom, I said. They think they're defending her honor. I need to tell them to leave. It's too dangerous. Wait for the police. But I was already turning the deadbolt. I couldn't let this continue, couldn't let Mom's memory be used to justify whatever was about to happen to my family. Even if Brianna deserved consequences, Elena didn't. Dad didn't. I opened the door slowly, my hands raised peacefully. The crowd had grown to at least 20 people, ranging from college-aged kids to veterans in their 60s. When they saw me, a weird hush fell over them. Are you Jake Santos? The woman holding Mom's photo asked. I am. Son, we're here to support you. What your stepsister did to your mother's memory, that's not acceptable in our community. I looked at the faces staring back at me, all of them genuinely angry on my behalf, genuinely trying to honor Mom in their own misguided way. The weight of what I'd started, what I'd unleashed, hit me all at once. I appreciate that, I said carefully. But my mother wouldn't want this. She'd want you to go home to your families. Behind me, I heard Elena start crying. And I realized that I had about 60 seconds to figure out how to undo what couldn't be undone. I stood on my front porch facing 20 angry strangers, my heart hammering as I tried to find the right words to defuse a situation I'd accidentally created. Staff Sergeant Santos was a hero, an older veteran said, stepping forward. And what your stepsister said about her, calling her inattentive, mocking her sacrifice, that's unforgivable. You're right, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. What she said was wrong. But this isn't what my mom would have wanted. She believed in justice, not vigilante mobs. A younger guy near the back shouted, "Where is she? Where's the military fraud?" I could feel Brianna trembling behind the door, and despite everything she'd done, the terror in her breathing made something twist in my chest. "She's 17, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "She's a kid who made terrible choices and said cruel things. But she's not worth ruining your own lives over. Kids need to learn consequences," someone else called out. "And she will," I replied. "Her college acceptance was revoked. Her relationship is over. Her family is falling apart. Trust me, she's facing consequences." The woman holding Mom's photo studied my face carefully. "You seem awfully protective of someone who desecrated your mother's memory." That hit harder than I expected. Because she was right, why was I protecting Brianna? After everything she'd done, everything she'd said about Mom, why wasn't I letting these people give her exactly what she deserved? "Because my mom raised me better than that," I said finally. "She taught me that being right doesn't justify being cruel." The words came out before I could stop them, and they hung in the air like an accusation against myself. Being right doesn't justify being cruel. But wasn't that exactly what I'd been doing for the past week? Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "You need to leave," I said urgently. "Before this gets worse for everyone. Please. Honor my mother by being better than this." Most of the crowd started moving toward their vehicles, but a few lingered, including the veteran who'd spoken first. "Son, you sure you're not being manipulated here? Sometimes family loyalty can blind us to." "I'm sure," I interrupted. "Please. Just go." As the last truck pulled out of our driveway, 3 police cars turned onto our street. I watched them approach with a sinking feeling, knowing that even though the immediate threat was over, the real consequences were just beginning. Officer Martinez, who'd responded to noise complaints in our neighborhood before, stepped out of the lead car. "Jake. Your dad called about threats." "It's handled," I said. Everyone left peacefully. "We still need to file a report. And we need to talk to the family member who was being targeted." Behind me, I heard Dad explaining the situation to Elena in hushed tones. Brianna would have to talk to police about her social media posts, her lies to the university, the online harassment that had led to this confrontation. Everything I'd carefully orchestrated in the shadows was about to become official record. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Saw the news about your stepsister. This is just the beginning." Then another, "Your address is all over military forums now. Watch your back." And another, "Military frauds don't get to hide forever." I stared at my phone screen, realizing with growing horror that disbanding the crowd at our house hadn't ended anything. It had just pushed the anger back online, where it would fester and grow and potentially bring more people to our door. What I'd started as targeted revenge against Brianna had morphed into something I couldn't control. And it was far from over. 3 days later, I was sitting in my car outside the Phoenix VA hospital, watching Brianna walk through the front doors in an oversized sweatshirt and baseball cap, trying to make herself invisible. After the police reports, after the lawyers got involved, after Elena had broken down completely and Dad had taken emergency leave from work, we'd all reached the same conclusion: the only way to stop the online harassment was for Brianna to make it right. Publicly. Meaningfully. Not a bullshit apology video. Real action. "You don't have to do this," I told her that morning, surprising myself by meaning it. "Yes, I do," she replied. "If I want to live with myself, I do." The Brianna who'd emerged from 3 days of death threats and police interviews wasn't the same person who'd drawn a mustache on Mom's photo. The cockiness was gone. The casual cruelty had been burned away by genuine fear and, I thought, genuine remorse. Elena had arranged for Brianna to volunteer at the VA hospital, real volunteer work this time, not fictional hours for college applications. 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, for the next 6 months. Reading to patients, helping with physical therapy, learning the names and stories of the people she dismissed as smelling like sadness. I watched her disappear into the building and pulled out my phone. Over the past few days, I'd been busy with my own damage control, using the same digital skills I'd used to destroy her life to now defend it. I'd tracked down the worst harassment accounts, the ones making specific threats, and reported them systematically to platforms and authorities. I'd reached out to Marcus, not to defend Brianna, but to ask him to take down the posts with our address. He'd been surprisingly willing to listen when I explained that his call for vigilante justice was putting my family in danger. Most importantly, I'd written my own post, a long, honest account of what had happened, posted to every military forum and social media group where Brianna's information had been shared. My name is Jake Santos. My mother, Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, died in Afghanistan 5 years ago. My stepsister made cruel comments about her memory, and while those comments were wrong and hurtful, the harassment campaign against my family needs to stop. My mother fought to protect people, not to justify threats against a teenager. Please honor her memory by choosing mercy over vengeance. It wasn't going viral the way the outrage had, but it was making a difference. The threats had slowed to a trickle. The angry posts were being deleted or buried under comments from veterans who agreed that Mom wouldn't have wanted this. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. "How's she doing?" I looked back toward the hospital entrance. "First day. She showed up." That's something. It was something. For someone who built their entire identity on fake achievements and shallow relationships, choosing to do grunt work with no recognition took a kind of courage I hadn't expected from her. My phone rang, Elena's number. "Jake. I wanted to thank you again for what you wrote online. The threats have almost stopped completely." "Good. And I wanted you to know, we're not sending her to live with Carmen anymore. She's going to stay and face what she did here, where she did it." I closed my eyes, feeling something I hadn't expected, relief. "Jake. You still there?" "Yeah. Elena. For what it's worth, I think she's going to be okay. Different, but okay." When I got home that afternoon, I found Mom's memorial photo back on the hallway table, the frame repaired, the glass replaced, but the sharpen mark still faintly visible beneath the new protective coating. Dad had left it that way intentionally, I realized. Not to shame Brianna, but to remember that some damage can't be completely undone. Some consequences have to be lived with. I touched the frame gently, looking at Mom's smile through the faint shadow of cruelty that would always mark it now. Justice, I whispered. Not revenge. Finally, I understood the difference.